Okay, guys. Hi. Welcome to tonight's live chat. It's good to see you. YouTube has been a nightmare today. I'm going to jump on and see if YouTube will connect to my service. Yes. Okay. I see it connecting. See it connecting. Okay. You won't believe what I just went through. So a little bit before I came on, it had to be around 6:50. But this was a YouTube issue for the past few days. I clicked on go live on my own channel and it totally blocked me out. It logged me out, told me I wasn't the owner of the channel. The list goes on. Nothing shady was going on that I know of, but something technologically was happening on YouTube. And so I had to move it to 7:05 tonight to make sure that I can get all of you signed on. Literally, I could not sign on to the live chat. It was like I was blocked or something. So it's good to see you guys signing in, signing on. I see the numbers going up as you guys get situated. That looks good because it was looking grim the first time around. Hopefully you guys got your notifications too, because that wasn't working either today. It's just been a bad day for YouTube, to be very honest, but it's good to see all of you. How are you? I hope you're doing well tonight. For me, Fridays are a little bit perplexing because I don't know if I'm going to have to see a lot of clients, if I'm going to have to teach a class, or if I'm going to just have a day off and spend it with you guys. So today was one of those days where I got to see 2 people in the office and spend the rest of my day with you guys. And then I'm going to try to log off of here around 7:45. I do have to leave, but I want to get most of you in. Let's jump in. Okay. Let me hook up Instagram here. I just need to hit go live. I'm going to type a message to them and say, hello, friends. Welcome. If you'd like to engage with me, sign on to my channel. Okay. It looks like we're doing better. Everything is working like it's supposed to work. All right, guys, let's jump into this conversation. Okay. This is really a conversation that has a lot to do with being bonded to the abuser. Now, if you had to list the various people that you feel that you have been abused by, or the person, how would you do that? How many people would you say have been abusive to you? When I ask my clients that, especially the ones who are in family dynamics that are abusive, they're in romantic relationships that are abusive, they've been in marital relationships that are abusive, they've been in sometimes even relationships with neighbors that have just gone on for 30 or more years and there's no peace. I don't think Elizabeth is on. Oh, thanks, MS. I appreciate you for saying that. That's so sweet, right? I don't like when it doesn't cooperate, it's a headache. So thank you so much for that. And welcome to tonight's live chat. I appreciate you. So there are some situations where you can be a neighbor, right, with someone for 35 years and they've been abusive to you. So if you had to count it up on your hand, how many abusive people have been in your life? Would it be on one hand or would it be on 2 hands? And the reason I posed that question is we talked about traumatic bonding this week. On Tuesday, I posted my video on traumatic bonding, and I really did try to break down, which is a little bit hard to do in a video under 30 minutes, but I really tried to break down the essential components of a traumatic bond. And what's scary is you could be in a relationship, you could be in a family dynamic where there's been a multiplicity or a variety of traumatic experiences, where you have experienced trauma with a sibling, you have experienced trauma with a parent that's unstable, maybe you experienced trauma with your grandparents, right? There could be somebody that you have experienced trauma with, or you may have experienced trauma because of them, and somehow you become so intertwined with them that it's very hard to get away, even when you want to. Even when you want to. What about trying to get away and you are financially dependent upon them? That is really difficult, right? Some people are even dependent on their family members or their relationship partners physically. because they have a physical disability. Maybe there's trauma, complex PTSD or PTSD. How do you get away from that unhealthy, toxic relationship of false hope? We're going to talk about that too tonight. How do you get away when you're dependent? And that is one of the biggest issues when it comes to traumatic bonds and abuse. Now, in a traumatic bond, let me define what that is. A lot of people call it a trauma bond. A lot of people call it Stockholm Syndrome. A lot of people call it, there's another word and I just lost it. Some people even confuse it with complex PTSD and codependency. But let me tell you what the differences are here. So I'm going to type this in, but I'm going to say it as I type it to you. So codependency is when two people share the same emotions, thoughts, and even behaviors. Codependency. Codependency is when two people share the same emotions, thoughts, and even behaviors to the point of losing themselves. That's codependency. I'm experiencing similar thoughts, similar behaviors, similar emotions to you. Okay, I'm experiencing that to the point of losing myself. Okay, traumatic bond. Traumatic bonding is the experience of developing. I'm going to write it down in the chat box. So it's the experience of developing an emotional attachment that is rooted in the cycle of abuse, manipulation, fear mongering, and coercive control. Okay, so let me go back over that. Codependency is I have become so intertwined with you that I lose sight of my own thoughts, my own feelings, my own behaviors. Traumatic bonding is the result of an emotional attachment that is rooted in or the cause of the cycle of abuse, manipulation, we're going to throw lies in there, and coercive control. Okay, that's traumatic bonding. Stockholm Syndrome. You guys ready for this? So Stockholm, I bet you I'm going to spell this wrong. Stockholm Syndrome. Okay. Bear with me, guys. Hold on a minute. Here we go. Okay. Stockholm Syndrome. The definition of that is being trapped in an unwanted relationship that is abusive and exploitive and results in a person having a strong emotional attachment to the abuser. Kidnapping, stalking, being held hostage. That is Stockholm Syndrome. I'm in a situation where I can't get out. I may have been tortured. The relationship is unwanted. And I didn't choose to be here. I haven't chosen to be in this relationship. You have taken me, stalked me, held me hostage, kept me away from my social and family group. You have completely erased my ability to get out of this relationship. And yet, I have somehow developed love for you. I don't want you hurt. I don't want you killed. I don't want you arrested. I care for you. Why? Because you have taken me hostage. You have had me in this abusive, unhealthy bond. I can't escape. I keep throwing that in there because that's the difference between traumatic bonding and Stockholm Syndrome. Stockholm Syndrome, I can't get out. I didn't marry into this. I didn't date into this. I'm not a family member to you. I am in this situation where I have absolutely no power, and yet being trapped in this situation with you has caused me to care about you. And so now I am influenced by my own emotions of you. Does that make sense, guys? Traumatic bond, emotional attachment, coercive control, manipulation, lies, and a cycle of abuse. Codependency. I've lost sight of who I am because we share so many emotions and thoughts and behaviors that are similar. Stockholm Syndrome. I am trapped and I cannot get out of here. Yet, I'm not so sure I want you punished either because I care about you. Does that make sense, guys? Those are usually experiences that people mix up and they get it confused. They get it confused. There are clear differences. Are there clear overlaps? 100%, right? But the way that I explain this to my clients is exactly how I've explained it to you. That is the little twinge of difference between each of them. The reason for the experience of being stuck, how you think about it and how you feel about it, right, is what the difference is between the three of those things. Now, let me say a traumatic bond can happen between you and your mom. Let's say, for example, you have a narcissistic mother. I had this case so many years ago. A narcissistic mother. Domestic violence was something that happened every other night between your narcissistic mother and her boyfriend. And here you are overhearing this, right? You're seeing it. You see blood. You see things broken in the house. You see all kind of chaos and division in your family. Mom is depressed. You see an alcohol bottle on the table and an empty glass, right? You know, you see the man that your mother's been dating yelling and screaming and threatening and maybe standing on top of your mom. And all you can do is stand there and watch. And it's traumatizing you. Why is it traumatizing you? Because you can't get out of it. You can't stop it. You can't intervene. You're afraid to intervene, right? You've stood in the background and you've watched your narcissistic mother's unhealthy patterns of relationships, and it terrifies you, right? What happens in these kind of dynamics is what we call a paradoxical sense of loyalty. A paradoxical sense of loyalty. Yes, your mother's a narcissist. Yes, she keeps bringing abusive people in her life. Yes, you have been exposed to her abusive relationships and you have felt threatened, right? But here's what's interesting about traumatic bonding. You may have on the inside for your mother a paradoxical sense of loyalty. And we might as well throw in there misguided hope. A paradoxical sense of loyalty. You don't want to be loyal to her, right? Maybe you don't like your narcissistic mother. Maybe she's never been loving and caring and, you know, giving you a feeling of security. Maybe she's never been compassionate towards you. Maybe she's been the criticizing parent, I could say, right? Maybe she's just not a good mom. But as you open that door and you see your mom on the floor, blood everywhere, alcohol everywhere, things knocked over, you hear the man she's dating screaming at her, maybe even, towering over her, and you're watching this, what kicks in? Because you're traumatically bonded to this unstable mother, what kicks in? A paradoxical sense of loyalty. I don't really care for you, Mom. I'm angry. I'm resentful. You've never kept me safe. But for some reason, you sitting on that floor with him towering over you, crying, and I see blood all over the place. That makes me want to help you. That makes me love you. That makes me care about you. That makes me want to protect you. And that is what is so complex about a traumatic bond, right? Because it is a paradoxical sense of loyalty. You don't really have to be loyal to a parent who is inadequate. That's not your requirement. Your requirement, if I can say it, is to just be the child, the adult child, whatever, in the situation, and protect yourself if you need to, not mom. But when there's a paradoxical sense of loyalty, it's hard to do that. You want to step in even though you know you shouldn't. You want to hug mom and get her up off the floor and hit this man and call the police, even though you know you don't have to. Even though mom may have been like a mommy dearest, for those of you who know what that is, A paradoxical sense of loyalty says, I really don't care how many times you've beat me, lied to me, harmed me, cheated me, deceived me. I still love you as my mother. And that is so complex. Anytime I have to meet with clients, and they're my young clients. So I see kids between 5 and 12, and then I see adolescents between 13 and 19, and then, further up is my young adults, my college students, my older adults. So I categorize them like that. If I am seeing a child between the ages of 5 and 12 years old, I have to be very, very careful as a person of authority, as a person whose word is believed, it's listened to, it is considered. I often have to be extraordinarily careful with how I relate to the child between the ages of 5 and 12 when they are literally stuck in an abusive situation with a parent. Because here's what I have found a few times in my past when I wasn't that experienced. When I was a baby in the field, I had to be maybe 3 or 4 years into the field, fresh ink on my license. Okay. And I was so happy to put that license in a photo frame and put it up on my wall and say, yes, I'm qualified. But here's what I missed. I had a lot of road to travel before I became experienced. And so I remember one of my clients that I had when I worked in a residential treatment facility, and that's where people live on campus because they can't function in the real world. But I remember seeing children there. And my first client was a 9-year-old. She had a mother who was extraordinarily abusive to her. This poor baby suffered encopresis and enuresis. You guys know what that is? Encopresis is an inability to hold your own feces, right? So it's incontinence. Enuresis, inability to hold your urine, right? So I would go to her room. I would knock on her little door. I would say, are you ready for therapy? And she would say yes. And the room was awful, okay, because she didn't have bowel control. She didn't have urine control, bladder control. She hid food all the time because she was so insecure and so afraid. Her mom just really, really messed this poor baby up, So I would sit on her floor with her. I would talk to her about her mom. And sometimes she would cry, and other times she would laugh hysterically, even when nothing funny was being said. It was almost like a period of psychosis for her, or some kind of loss of touch with reality. One session, though, I knocked on her door. I said, "Are you ready?" And she was laying in her bed with the covers over her head. And I'm calling her name. I says, "Are you ready, my dear? What's wrong?" And she's crying. And I says, "Can you talk to me? What's happening? Did something happen today?" And she says, "Miss Tamara, my mom visited me." I says, "Yeah, what time of day was that?" She said, "It was 3 hours ago." And she starts unloading and telling me about the visit. And she said that her mom said this to her: "You are always a mistake. You are a burden to my life. I wish I had never had you, because the man that I had you with is insane, and you are too. Don't you know why I put you in here?" And I asked her, I says, "Oh my God." I said, "Did your mom say that to you?" She shook her head, yes. I says, "How dare she? I cannot believe she would say that to you." I was so livid. And so then she starts crying. And she says, "My mom told me she never liked me, and she's going to give me up to the state because she doesn't want to raise me anymore." And part of that was mom's trauma response, because mom had her with a man who assaulted her. So it was not a wonderful situation that had happened to bring her about. So if you can kind of imagine that, you see why mom is so cold and distant, So mom didn't know how to kind of detach her own feelings of trauma from this child. But I got so upset. I was so mad. Oh my God. And I remember saying, "I'm going to have a talk with your mother." Okay. And I was talking to a colleague who came in the room. And I said, "I can't believe this pitiful excuse for a mother said this to her." And the child overheard it. Ugh. That was the worst mistake of my life. 5 years into the field, I had no idea she overheard me. And that little girl, I could feel her defenses went up with me immediately. Why? Because she was in a traumatic bond with her mom. I had no idea, right? I had no idea. Or I wouldn't have said that within ear's length of her. But What I failed to realize was this. She was in a situation where, yes, her mother was extraordinarily abusive. And I mean extraordinarily abusive. Their home reeked with cat urine, dog feces, the list goes on. Okay. CYF took her out of the home. Mom was just a very poor excuse of a mom. Extraordinarily a poor excuse of a mom. But the daughter, the 9-year-old, my client, couldn't detach from her mother. Why? Because no matter what, that was her mother. And so I learned at that moment that it can impact my relationship with her if I don't carefully talk about her mother to her. Does that make sense, guys? She was in a situation where she loved her mother. She loved the idea of having a mother. And she so desperately desired a mother that you had to be careful in how you talked about her mother around her and with her. Because the paradoxical sense of loyalty says, I am still entwined with my mom no matter what. That is a scary reality, right, guys? It is. In a sense, she had, over time, I, engaged her in more therapy, trauma-focused therapy with her. And, she started showing a false hope, which is an overestimation of reality. So let me add this, false hope. And I'm going to get to the chat box, guys. Bear with me. False hope is an overestimation. Okay. False hope is an overestimation of reality. Okay. Overestimation of reality. Did this little girl have false hope? 100%. She wanted a mother. If she wasn't saying to me, Miss Tamara, I wish you were my mom, then she was saying, I wish my mom was a mom. That was constantly on her little mind all the time. And so her false hope was an overestimation of reality. She just knew that she was going to do better behaviorally. She was going to be able to develop coping skills. She was going to be able to get over the incontinence. She was going to be able to control her little emotions a lot better. And she also believed that mom was going to show up on the day of discharge with open arms and say, Mommy loves you. Let's continue this life together. And that's not what happened at all. So there was a lot of false hope. In addition to this, for those of you who have experienced this, let me also say that we tend to have an inadequate assessment of the abuser when we are in it. If you consider domestic violence, right? You for those of us who have never been in a domestically violent situation, it can be really hard for us, and it was for me just starting out in the field. It can be really hard for us to step back and process why that person would stay, why that person would continue to allow the abuse, why that person would cover them and protect them, why that person won't file charges, right? Why that person doesn't go get a PFA, protection from abuse order. It is hard for us to figure out why those steps are not taken. What's interesting is some of that, and this is backed by research in the field, some of that is the result of an inadequate assessment. And here's what happens. In an inadequate assessment, there's positive illusions. So the person sees things in the abuser that is really not there. Consider what an illusion is. It's you're looking at something, but it is contorted and it's skewed and it's different shapes and forms. It's not a real reality. So there is often an inadequate assessment of the abuser based on positive illusions. I see you in this skewed, twisted way. Okay. There's also unrealistic belief that the abuser will change. Unrealistic belief that the abuser will change, right? And there is often in the background, even if the person doesn't verbalize this, but there's often I can change you kind of mentality in the background. So when you have those three things, positive illusions, this false hope that the person can change, and also this erroneous belief system that you can change them, when that's in the background, it is hard for a person who is in a traumatic bond to walk away, right? It's an inadequate assessment. The other piece of this is if you experience intense emotional experiences together. So let's say, for example, maybe you have a traumatic bond with your husband. Maybe you have a traumatic bond with your wife, right? You guys go through traumatic situations together for a long period of time. You know, you both weathered the storm of a hurricane. You both, lost your child in a terrible car accident. You both, were in a airplane, and it supposedly wasn't going to be able to land appropriately. So it was chaos on the plane. And maybe both of you experienced at the hands of people in your past some coercive control and some cycles of abuse, and you came together because you guys had the same experiences. If you have that repeatedly over and over and over, right, that is an intense series of emotional experiences that can bond you to, right? And so you kind of not become codependent, you become a part of a traumatic bond. It's, I'm entwined in this thing with you. And what keeps us entwined is the fact that we relate. And we're both kind of in this bind of confusion. That's really what it can be defined as, a bind of confusion. And I hate to say this, but there's always, in a traumatic bond, there's a power imbalance where that other person is probably not the one in control, right? So let's say that's you. Maybe you're not the one in control. Maybe your mother is, maybe your father is, whoever you're in a traumatic bond with. Maybe that other person has the power and the control. You do not. So you're going to constantly see a reassertion of power and control. So you're there in the relationship being tormented, right? Where you're going to see that abuser of yours reassert control and power every chance they get. I had a conversation a couple months ago with a young man who was seeing me for short-term therapy. And what he told me the last time I saw him, he says, Miss Tamara, I don't understand why my girlfriend does this to me. You know, she pulls me in, then she abuses me some more. I leave and she pulls me back in, or she tries to get me upset so that I will act a certain way and she can say I'm the abuser. So he gave me a couple examples of that. And he gave me a couple examples of that. And I remember saying to him, let's go through this conversation together. Okay, let's go through what happened when you saw her. And every detail that he told me was a reassertion of power and control from her angle, right? Disconnecting his cell phone because she pays it. Reassertion of control. I have power to cut your phone off. She blocked his phone number and his text messages and his social media posts so that she didn't have to see them, right? Reassertion of power and control. Another thing she did is went to his mailbox, took his mail, and kept going. No lock on the mailbox. She just opened the mailbox, put the mail in. That was it. Opened the mailbox, took the mail out. Not put the mail in, no, she took it. And that was reassertion of power and control. So in other words, you're never going to get rid of me is really the undertone to that scenario. You're never going to get rid of me. You don't intimidate me. And look how easily I can reassert my power and control over you. If that doesn't make you angry, I don't know what will. You know what I mean? I told one of my clients last week, I said, let that make you angry. Let that make you angry. This person is also in an abusive relationship with someone. And I remember saying, let that make you angry. Because the moment you get angry, that's the moment you say to yourself, I got to get out of this, right? So we're going to talk about that tonight. Okay, guys, challenges. What are the challenges when you're in a traumatic bond with a person like this? What are the 7 stages of traumatic bonding? Do you guys know what that is? If not, we're going to talk about it. And briefly, I want to get to the impact. Okay. The impact on you. Let's go to the chat box, guys. I'm going to go ahead and just kind of welcome you guys briefly. And Pulsar, hello and welcome. It's so good to see you. I think I not invited you. My goodness, Tamara. I welcomed you at the very, very beginning. Yeah, totally get you. Anne says, okay, I'm here now on my AirPods so mom doesn't get upset. Yeah, because, this is a little bit of a triggering live chat, right? Yeah. Yeah. Phoenix, it's good to see you. Where are you? Why can't I tap on this button? Hold on, Phoenix. Dawn One, I think I welcomed you. I'm coming back to you, Phoenix. Keith B, Dennis Robinson, Phoenix, Kev Dower, Ronald Zion, Brandy Nuance. I hope I'm saying that right. Hello and welcome. It's good to see all of you tonight. I also see some new people. The Southeast Londoner. Man, I need to come visit London again. I went one time, and I didn't want to come back. I really didn't. And I had to come back, and I was crying and screaming because I didn't want to come back. It's good to see you. Welcome to the channel. Good to see you tonight. Okay. Mark Lee, hello, my friend. It's good to see you. Welcome back tonight. The Southeast Londoner says, came across this channel within the last year. Emotional and powerful content. Yeah, thank you so much. And it is, right? I need to start posting disclaimers. I really do. I think I'm going to post a disclaimer later on for this one because this one's a little heavy. Ellie Wynn, it's good to see you, my friend. Welcome back. Juby Joe, it's so great to see you. Welcome back. Fairy Girl, Brondo, Phil Bradley, Axe to Edge. And then there's one more I saw. Nancy R. It's good to see all of you. Welcome back tonight. Mark Lee says, I had many when I was younger, but I've gotten much better at spotting abusers and getting rid of them. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, you can, interestingly, pull abusers into your space, not knowing that you are, but it's because of a variety of behaviors that you have become accustomed to. And so it's familiar. What do we humans do? What do we humans do when we desire a relationship from somebody else? I'll put it that way. I was thinking another direction, but what do? Well, we just kind of say, you know what, that person seems nice. They seem easy to talk to. They seem mature. I think that I can have a good relationship with this person. 1 year down the line, they're abusive. They're loud. They're disrespectful. They're disregarding. And now you're looking at your abusive mother again, right? Part of that is because we reenact trauma. We reenacted, which, for those of you who are not aware, that means that, we have had a traumatic situation in the past, and now we're in a situation where all the dynamics are similar to that previous relationship. So we reenact it. So we'll come back to that probably tomorrow night in that live chat. Laura Fit and Christina Smith, is so good to see you guys. Welcome back tonight. Fairy Girl, thank you so much for the membership. I thought I saw super chat. The memberships. Thank you for gifting 5 people with a membership to the channel. Thank you so much for that. Yeah. Brandy Nuance says, that's so sweet. Yes, it is. I agree. Phoenix said, I have a hard time being assertive. I try to avoid being around people I can't talk to right now. And yes, I definitely turned into a codependent in my abusive marriage after I got hurt and couldn't work. Yeah, you can become codependent. Yes, you can. If there's been a physical disability, if there's been a psychological disability, and even if there's been something as natural as just a traumatic experience, like a natural disaster, right? Being displaced with your home, even things like that can trigger codependency, right? We Love Sound, hello and welcome. It's good to see you. We Love Sound says, my mom is trapped in one with my sister. It's heartbreaking to see. She won't stand up to her. Yeah, isn't it? It's hard when you can see the abuser and yet that person won't leave. that person will not leave, you know? And it's like, what needs to happen for you to leave, you know? But you also have to pace your frustration with a person in a situation like that, because they are trapped. And even if you can see an open door to leave, they may not. So anytime I have to deal with domestic violence, relationships, marriages, whatever, in that realm within my practice, I try to keep in mind that I have to learn to pace my own frustration, right? Because sometimes I feel like, really, you took him back? Or sometimes I would feel like, oh God, no, don't do that, you know? Or, 5 years ago, I had a client, she was a wonderful girl, went to college, graduated, went to law school, graduated, became a judge within 2 years of graduating law school. She was superb. Okay. And her ability to just go. She had motivation. She was intelligent. She was self-motivated. But when it came to her fiance, she was anything but self-motivated. She was very, very vulnerable. And I remember him beating her so bad that she stayed away from me in therapy for a good 2 months. Why? She needed all her bruises to heal. And I remember thinking, wait a minute, she missed this session, that session. So I pulled her up in my file, and she had missed several sessions. And, if you miss between 5 to 8 sessions in my practice, then that means I'm going to close your file to stay in compliance. I'm going to try to re-engage you if I can or feel that it's worth it. And then I'm going to close your file, put it up in my discharged file, I couldn't do that with her. So it was the 10th appointment that she had missed. And I remember calling her. She didn't answer. I sent her an email. She didn't answer because she didn't recognize my number. But I emailed her. She answered. And I asked her if she would be interested in coming to see me one more time, whether that is to close therapy or to continue it. And she says, yes, absolutely. Well, when she came in, she had stitches in her face. She had broken bones, right? She had bruising over her collarbone where he tried to strangle her to death. She was literally on the verge of being killed. And I remember saying to her, I can't believe you went back to him. She says to me, I know, I should have listened to you. You told me to get away. You told me it was life or death. I know. She says, but I cannot get out of this. I feel guilty when I leave. She says, I feel like a complete idiot when I tell other people and they tell me everyone gets angry. He just needs anger management. So she went down this whole list. We love sound. That really backed up the reason for why she stayed. And so, specifically to what you're saying here, I agree, but mom is not going to see that, right? It may take mom many, many years before she sees that, I've had to learn, and maybe you as well, how to pace my frustration and just swallow that they've gone back. That's so hard to do. Swallow that they're not taking your advice or your suggestions. Swallow the fact that they are being manipulated. It is so painful, but it's rough, right? You kind of have to let reality catch up to them. Yeah. I'm going to leave it at that. We love sound. I'm going to leave it at that. Lil Johan. If I mess up something else again tonight, Lil Johan, hello and welcome, my friend. It's good to see you. It's good to see you. Pretty Mimi, hello and welcome. It's good to see you. I haven't seen you in a little while. Pretty Mimi says, just observed the 30th year anniversary of my, I don't know what that means. I probably do, but it's not coming to me. Does anybody know what that is? I'm not sure what essay is, but you guys might. Okay. It was in a cemetery. Okay. It was in a cemetery, and I was a virgin before that day. This resulted in a pregnancy, which I miscarried. Family outcasted me, feeling guilty. Yeah. You're asking me why? Well, I think I would need more information to give you that. To give you that answer. I think that you can, in a general sense, feel guilty just because it's a lot of sticky stuff in there, right? An assault. It was an assault. Pregnancy, which you miscarried. Most women have a really hard time with that. Family going against you or kind of pushing you to the outskirts of the family dynamic, right? Feeling guilty in and of itself. All of that can lead to those feelings of maybe self-blame and guilt. I will leave it there because I don't have a lot of details to go on. But that would be my guess. My professional guess. Yeah, let me go to Ann Pulser for a second here. Ann Pulser says, so that's basically me not wanting to get protection order against my mom because I don't want to get, you don't want to see her get in the, did you finish that, Ann Pulser? I don't know if you finished that. So that's basically me not wanting to get a protection order against my mom. I don't see the rest of an Ann Pulser. Okay. I'm going to have to leave it there, Ann Pulser. Let me just pull from this because I was trying to look and I don't see it. Let me pull from this for the sake of time that the reality here is for most people, I don't want to file a protection order because I don't want to see you go to jail. I don't want to see you get in trouble. I don't want to see you 302'd or put in the hospital against your will. I don't want to have to see those things happen to you at the hands of your daughter, your son, your cousin, whoever it is, because there's a piece of me that still cares for you. And that is the crux or the foundation of the traumatic bond, right? It's, I know where you should be. I know where I should be. I don't want to deal with that. I don't want to put you in a bind, right? And I don't want to see you hurting. We'll leave it at that, Impulser. Danielle, thank you so much. I really appreciate you for that. It's so good to have you. Welcome to the channel, and I'm glad that you could tune in live. Good to see you. All right, guys, let me keep moving. We got to get back to the content. Mark Lee says, can anyone be mentally healthy while in this world? I honestly do not think so. Let me clean that up. I don't think everybody is mentally unhealthy because they're in this world, but I do believe that you can be unhealthy because you are in the world. So you can be physically unhealthy, spiritually unhealthy, psychologically unhealthy, mentally unhealthy. And it just depends on that will, which one you're going to be. Most of my clients are psychologically healthy, but they do struggle with emotional challenges and behavioral challenges. Maybe, Mark Lee, you struggle with spiritual issues or challenges. Maybe for me, Mark Lee, I struggle with all physical issues. Every time I turn around, I have a health condition or a health problem, So I do believe that we can be physically healthy, and we can be mentally healthy, but somewhere we're going to struggle with that, So we may struggle with mental health, physical health, spiritual health, whatever. I really don't think that we're going to get away from not experiencing something. Does that make sense, guys? So good point, Mark Lee. I'm glad you brought that up. Okay, one more comment. Danielle says, toxic parents are definitely the root to children's trauma and problems. Sadly, I ended up with this soul tie. Yeah, I totally understand, because something is wrong with the parent, right? Okay, I lied. One more comment. Carl Millen, hello and welcome. It's good to see you in tonight's live chat. Carl Millen says, the best thing is to just run while you have the chance rather than getting into a trauma bond. I agree. Get out of it, right? And you make a good point. We're going to go back to the content on this one too. If you if you can identify that abuse is happening, step out of it and stay out of it, that's better than going into the relationship and out of the relationship, into the relationship and out again. Why, you may be asking? Because of this. The more in and out you are, the more of a traumatic bond you build, right? The more of codependency that you build, the more that you build a dependency on this person's material wealth, their finances, their emotional love for you, right? Psychological connection or closeness. There's a lot that kind of exists in that toxic, traumatic relationship that is going to get tighter the more you go in and out of the relationship, right? I always tell my clients, if you're going to leave, stay gone, right? Don't go back. Don't keep going back. If you make a mistake and go back a second time, get out of it. Don't keep playing hopscotch, because you're going to get wrapped up in that at some point, right? And the abuser is going to feel in control. Why? Because now they know that you can't go on without them. And once they see that, they know they've got you. So nothing they do is going to faze them. They're not going to feel guilty about their behavior. They're not going to want to change, because what they're doing is working. Does that sound familiar, guys? Consider it inflation of disposition, attitude, arrogance, behavioral problems. The list goes on. Whatever is wrong with them becomes bigger because they know that you're vulnerable, right? Here are some of the challenges. And sociology and psychology both agree that there is a pattern to relationships that involve a traumatic bond. There are stages, which we're going to get into in a second here. And that is what kind of keeps you stuck. Now, the number one challenge, I've seen this, research backs this up, that you are likely to see is what we call future faking. Have you guys ever heard of that? Future faking. Let me put that in the chat box here. So it's future faking. And what does that mean? It's false promises and emotionally dragging you along with lies and false hope. Future faking. Future faking. We're just going to talk about all promises. We're going to talk about white picket fence, 5 kids. We're going to talk about our family-owned business we're going to build. If you're in a traumatic bond with your mom, your dad, your sibling, maybe you guys are talking about having a family reunion. Then we're going to have a couple barbecues this year. We're going to go on a cruise together. Maybe we'll spend some money and go to a few concerts together, build our family bond, right? Future faking. It's false promises, false beliefs, right? False motivations. It's not going to happen. But if the abuser tells you it's going to happen, what is your heart and mind going to do? It's going to sit patiently and wait for it to happen. The only thing that you're waiting to happen, the only thing that you're waiting for is more abuse, because that is how they do it, right? Misleading information. Most abusers spread and continue to spread misinformation. Why wouldn't they? Misinformation keeps them looking good and you looking bad. It keeps you in a position of weakness and them in a position of authority. I have information that you don't have, so they spread false information. You may also, in some way, and research also backs this up, and there's been research studies on this, you may become addicted over time to the abuse cycle. You become addicted to the positive feelings that happen after the abuse. You become addicted to the period of time where everybody is apologizing, everybody is reconciling, everybody is saying, you know what, let's not let this happen ever again. Somehow the brain biologically and neurologically becomes addicted to the process of reconciliation. And so you may find yourself kind of living for that period of the relationship. A traumatic bond entails the cycle of abuse, right? What's the cycle of abuse? You have tension building, right? You have explosion. When something happens, finally, the tension has been rising and building, right? Now the explosion happens, an argument, a physical fight, some kind of betrayal, some kind of deception, right? And you have this period of time where you're hurt, you're angry, but then it leads to reconciliation in some way. And then guess what happens after reconciliation? The honeymoon period. What does that mean? loving conversations, hugging the person all the time. Maybe you're buying them things and they're buying you things. Whatever the case, it's a honeymoon before the cycle starts again. You know what I mean? And so that is a really depressing reality. You can kind of become addicted to that whole process, mainly the reconciliation, because it feels good, right? You also may notice that the abuser is blocking every attempt of yours to get some clarity in the relationship. Clarity is power. Clarity is power. So the less clarity that you have, the easier it is for them to abuse you, right? So you may see them blocking any attempt of yours to gain clarity. They want you to remain blinded, right? There's a power imbalance or a power differential. They're up here, you're down here. They're up here, you're down here. Why? They have more money. They have more power over your life. They got you that job. They told everybody that you guys are getting married. So now you must get married because everybody now knows and you don't want to be embarrassed, right? Maybe you cloak and cover mom, dad, for whatever reason, right? And so dad looks more powerful than he really is. Mom looks more powerful than she really is. There's often a power differential. Somebody's up, somebody's down. And that's how the abuse cycle continues to go as well. It continues to function because of that power imbalance. There's also this escalation of, maybe I'll put it this way. There's an escalation of abusive behaviors and tactics upon going no contact. So let's say you've gone away, you've gone no contact, right? You don't want to be bothered with them anymore. You've blocked their phone number. You don't text with them anymore. You've blocked them from your social media, right? So you have shown them in many ways, I want nothing to do with you. Research suggests that that's the period when abuse intensifies. Why? Because walking away is power. Gaining money to move out is power. Telling them to get out of the house is power. Dealing with your abusive mother by telling her what you've always needed to tell her, that is power, right? Having a friend with you to help rescue you from that abusive bond, that is power. They don't like power, right? So of course, the abuse is going to amp up when you try to take your control back. And that can be a very, very dangerous piece of the abuse. Now, let's go to the 7 stages of abuse. Okay, guys? First stage, love bombing. We all know what that is. I'm going to put in here the 7 stages of abuse. Okay? Love bombing. Everybody uses that word anymore. He loved bomb me. She loved bomb me. It's like the world found a really interesting term and they're running with it, Excuse me, but there are some situations where you are loved bombed. Here's really what it is clinically, okay? If we remove the word love bombing, we're talking about a series of tactics that are manipulative, okay? We're talking about trying to win your trust, trying to blind you to the reality of a situation, causing you to doubt yourself and fall into denial because they're so nice, right? That it's hard for me to see that they are evil. Okay. There is also exploitation. I'm going to exploit you emotionally and literally. And you're not going to know what's happening because I'm so nice to you, right? I'm going to steal your power and control and take it off of you. That's love bombing. I am going to shower you with admiration in hopes that you give back to me, in hopes that you ignore my abuse, in hopes that you don't report me, file a PFA, call Child Protective Services, right? So if you remove the label of love bombing, then you get a sense for really what it is. And it's not always just, I'm going to shower you with gifts. I'm going to shower you with wonderful things. It is a very manipulative and calculated move. And it's not just narrowed down to, I get a lot of gifts. I get a lot of compliments. No, It's a series of manipulative and calculating behaviors. That's a love bomb. I'm going to send a bomb your way, so to speak, and it's going to destabilize you. It's going to confuse your mind about me because I have an ultimate goal. And in order for me to get to that ultimate goal way over there, I need you to be weak to me. And so if I give you A, B, and C, if I praise you, if I make you feel special, right? I'm not just trying to get you wonderful things to cause you to see me differently. I'm working on something. And the more a person engages in these behaviors that we call a love bomb, it just weakens you more and more, right? So consider yourself literally the recipient of buying loyalty. They're buying loyalty. That's really what it is. So that's stage number one. Stage number two is trust and dependence. If I can get you to trust me, if I can stand up for you, if I can pay your mortgage for you, if I can get you a car and you pay me later, if I can go to your work and talk to your supervisor, if I can do anything that will make me look like you can trust me, I will do it. So there's trust and then there's dependence. So this is stage number two of the traumatic bond. Dependence. I'm going to cause you to depend on me because I'm trustworthy. And you've already seen me. I've already gotten you that job. I've already paid that bill. I've already done A, B, and C. So you know that I'm trustworthy. So I just need you to depend on me. And that's what's really happening in stage number two. Stage three is criticism and devaluation. Who do you think you are? You're nothing without me. You're never going to get away. What makes you think you're intelligent? What makes you think anybody's going to ever want you? Why do you think you're all of that? Because you're not. Who lied to you growing up? Because you certainly are not a prize. You know, the list goes on, right? And sometimes I hear it in sessions and I just sit there and I'm thinking, oh my God, this is awful, right? And sometimes I'll stop the person. Okay, that's enough. That's enough. We don't need to demean anymore, you know? But in a traumatic bond, in a situation where your ability to function is jeopardized, you know, this is how they do it. They criticize you, they devalue you, and they've got the power again. Power and control. Remember, it's a reassertion of control. Oh, I'm losing control. I'm going to reassert my ability to gain control by devaluing you, criticizing you, and making you feel like dirt. Stage number four, manipulation and gaslighting. Gaslighting is another word everybody has learned, and they're so excited about it. Really, gaslighting is this in a nutshell. It's taking your reality and it's skewing it to what they want you to see. Taking your reality, skewing it to what they want you to see. When I told you to get out, that doesn't mean I meant get out just for tonight. It meant get out, period, for a long time. You know, when I told you I'm never going to deal with your chaos again, you know, that wasn't just I'm not going to deal with your chaos. That is, I'm not going to deal with your chaos. I'm going to stop paying your car note. I'm going to stop paying your mortgage, stop paying your rent. The list goes on. There's often a lot behind gaslighting. It's not just making you feel like you're crazy, so to speak. It's not just there to cause you to doubt yourself. It's, again, a series of manipulative behaviors that has been categorized as gaslighting. You know, it can be as simple as, would you please have my things ready for me to pick up at a breakup? Can you please have all my things ready for me to pick up by tomorrow at 12, right? You get there tomorrow at 12, nothing's there. You call him back or call her back. They answer, you say, where's my things? Here's how they gaslight you. You ready for this? They're still in my apartment. You may say, I asked you to put them outside by 12 noon. Why didn't you? Oh, no, you didn't ask me that. Yes, I did, right? The other person, the abusive person, the gaslighter, they're going to come back at you and say, nope, you didn't mention the time and I'm not ready for you. So you're going to have to come back tomorrow afternoon because I can't get it ready for you. It's not going to happen. And you may say, but I explicitly asked you, and he may have his phone, okay, go back to an old text exchange and say, see, here it is right here. You never told me you wanted to come by at 12 noon. So come back tomorrow. You come back tomorrow. Oh, I'm sorry. I have a job interview to go to. Sorry, I couldn't leave your things out. I'll talk to you later. right? So you're being minimized, you're being pushed in the background as unimportant, and then you're also being gaslit. It's all manipulation, you know? Stage number five, resignation and giving up. Resignation, I can't do it anymore. I can't. I'm just going to give in to being abused because it's too hard to get away, right? Number 6 is a loss of self. I don't know who I am. I don't know who I am. I don't know what I'm supposed to do or not do, right? I'm confused. And 7 is emotional addiction. Remember, I said you can kind of get used to the cycle of abuse. Well, here it is in the 7 stages of traumatic bonding. The last stage is emotional, kind of like this emotional addiction. I'll put it that way, emotional addiction. I'm addicted to the emotions of this situation. You know, this is the only way that I know how to embrace life and live life. I'm literally glued to this particular thing. I'm addicted. Isn't that sad? My God, it's so sad. Okay. I'm trying to ponder. Do I want to go to the chat box or do I want to finish this with you? I think I'm going to finish it with you. Let's go to the impact and then I'll go to the chat box and we'll wrap up. Okay, guys. The impact. What's the impact? It's a very grim picture sometimes. Give me 1 second, guys. I have to respond to this. Hold on. Got it. Okay. Sorry, guys. So what is the impact here? The impact can be profound because you're in a situation where you're vulnerable and they won't let you go, right? So here's the number 1 impact. This is what I've seen, and this is backed by research. You're going to experience profound psychological disturbance. Profound psychological disturbance. You know, and you can also experience profound emotional agony. Constantly hurting. Constantly second guessing. Constantly feeling confused. Constantly questioning yourself, right? So profound psychological disturbance. And it is a disturbance. It most likely will disturb your everyday life, right? There's loss of autonomy and a sense of self. I can't be free. I don't know who I am because I've been up under this abuser for so long. And now we formed a traumatic bond that I don't know who I am. And I don't know how to develop who I am. What do I even like? What do I even think about all the time? What do I want to even watch on TV? Do I want to go out tonight or do I want to stay home? It's almost like the person becomes dependent, like a dependent personality where the other person has to make all the decisions for them, right? You may also obsess over your previous abuser. You may be long gone from that traumatic bond. Maybe you went no contact. Maybe you said, you know what? I'm not going to deal with this anymore. I am done. If you have said that, fantastic, you know, wonderful. However, are you obsessing over the abuser? Are you obsessing about what they did to you? Are you constantly talking about what happened between you? Are you constantly contacting the friend who knows about your relationship because you want to just keep talking about it over and over and over? So a lot of people who are in a traumatic bond and they've experienced everything we talked about tonight, right? The gaslighting, the love bombing, the trust and dependence, the addiction, the minimization, all of that. If you've experienced that and you're continuing to talk about the abusive dynamic between the two of you, that is obsessing. That is obsessing. And especially if you're thinking about it and then you have to use something like a pill or alcohol or something to bring your anxiety levels lower, then we know we're dealing with obsession, right? Compulsion is that thing that kind of gives you relief. So your compulsion may be, I'm going to go to the fridge, get a beer, drink a beer, go to bed. Boom. You know, and unfortunately, that's the result of kind of obsessing and constantly thinking about the person. The other piece of this is there's a tendency to kind of get caught up in the kind behavior of the abuser. An abuser can be wishy-washy, right? They can be over here and over here another time. And it can be really emotionally draining, right? So there's going to be a tendency for you to get caught up in the kind behavior of the abuser, and it's going to just pull you right back in, right? You may be defensive about the abuser. I've been in this position. Remember, I told you about the 9-year-old young lady that I had years ago. She was kind of defensive about her mother. And I shouldn't have said anything to my coworker, not realizing that this little girl followed me into the hallway. She was attached to my hip, if you will. So she's right behind me in the hallway. And I said something down low, but she caught it. And it kind of caused her to be a little bit defensive when it came to her mother. So she wasn't telling me things for a little while because she didn't want me to get upset again. So, that's why it's so important to keep self-control too. But at the time, I was so angry and I was new, and all I knew is this little girl didn't deserve this, But you can kind of get defensive. And anytime you become defensive over the abuser, that is a problem. Anytime I see clients who are in domestic violence situations, I always tell them this. If you get out of that relationship and you're trying to process what happened to you with me, don't expect me to be okay with you telling me how much you love them, telling me that you don't want to let go. Don't look for me to be in agreement with you, because I'm not going to be. I am not going to allow you to be defensive and come against me. And if you are still defensive, even after you've gotten out of the relationship, if you're still defensive about the person, you're not ready yet. You're not ready yet. You're not. Identity issues. Who are you? It's hard to have identity when somebody is perpetually abusing you, right? And if there's abuse and codependency, you're depending on that abuser, and vice versa. So it's a terrible web, right? It's a terrible web. Somatoform disorders you may have. So here's the spelling. Guys, I'm going to explain this in 1 second. Love bombing, trust and dependence. Hold on, guys. I'm going to add this late, but let me add this. So what were we saying? Somatoform disorders. So somatoform disorders. What are somatoform disorders? Fibromyalgia. My mom has it. Fibromyalgia. Feelings of being on pins and needles. Fear of and pain of needles sensation in your body. Headaches. Migraines. Do you guys think of anything else? Acid reflux, ulcers. I mean, we can just go on and on and on, right? Somatoform disorders, they have a psychological foundation. That psychological foundation is the reason for the somatoform disorder. I'm highly anxious and I'm having palpitations every day and chest tightness, right? I have severe anxiety, so I'm having a really hard time with this ulcer that I now have. And on top of that, my head hurts every day, my chest feels tight, and my body just aches, right? A somatoform disorder has a connection to the roots of psychology. That's why we call it a somatoform disorder. Okay. And also, too, you may find yourself avoiding help because of embarrassment. You're avoiding help because of embarrassment. One of my clients didn't want to tell me anything. Little did he know, I already knew he was being abused. Why? The signs of abuse are clear. That's why we go to school, so we can understand this, so that we can walk by you and say, you know what, I know what's going on there, So we may be off sometimes because we're not perfect, we're humans, but sometimes we can point out abuse. Sometimes the abusive person looks very innocent, and the abused seems really bouncy and impulsive and nervous and scared and asking for permission, and the list goes on, right? So you may be embarrassed to seek help because you don't want that label, right? Also, you may have an inability to define what a healthy relationship is. There's an inability to define what a healthy relationship is. How can you define what a healthy relationship is when all you've experienced is trauma, traumatic bonding, right? Maybe Stockholm Syndrome if you are the victim of kidnapping or a victim of being taken against your will, right? It's a lot of heavy stuff in this live chat. I'm going to make sure that I post a disclaimer at the end of this live chat so that everybody can know that comes onto the video tonight, that this is a lot of heavy stuff that we talked about. Tomorrow, you're going to want to see me because we're going to continue on in this conversation, not specifically traumatic bonding, but God, I'm tired, guys. Can you see how tired I am? It's like I just want to collapse and take a nap. Okay. Here we go. So tomorrow's live chat, I'm going to give you a heads up. Okay. Tomorrow's live chat is something known as abuse amnesia. You guys want to hear about that? Abuse amnesia. I saw this term years ago in grad school and I thought, wow, that's amazing how that can happen. So tomorrow's the psychology of abuse amnesia. So come join me tomorrow. Let me go to the chat box, guys, and continue engaging with you a little bit. And then we will go ahead and wrap up. Annie Walker, hello and welcome. It's good to see you in tonight's live chat. It's good to have you. Okay, we're going to keep moving. AMB, good evening to you. It's good to see you, my friend. Ann Pulsar says, some of my family members and doctors have expressed concern that my mother's behavior might resemble Munchausen by proxy. Yeah, similar to like cases like D.D. Blanchard. Yeah, so true. So true. Is there a possibility? 100%. Is it easy to prove? No. No, it's not. Munchausen syndrome by proxy is confusing. You know, a lot of people do not know the moving pieces of that. So maybe we'll talk about it sometime in the past, sometimes in the future, excuse me. If you guys want to see a video on that, just let me know. Sugar Bella, hello and welcome. Good to see you in tonight's live chat. We're going to wrap up here in just a little bit. Annie Walker says, my mother was extremely abusive. My mother also told me I ruined her life as she raged at me. Now she is dying and I have such mixed emotions. Yeah. Isn't that something? The mixed emotions, though, Annie Walker, is so very normal. I would not feel odd in any way because that is your only mother. And to be very honest, no matter what, she's the only mother you knew. She's the only mother that you know. And so most people would have a very hard time saying, hope you go to heaven. I hope things work out for you. Goodbye. No, you may find yourself actually beginning to understand your mom, love your mom a little bit, care about your mom for a little bit before she leaves here. So it's a dichotomy, isn't it, Annie? Janine MacArthur. Hello, Miss Janine. It's good to see you. Welcome back tonight. Miss Janine says, there are many times I felt like being angry with mom over the years. I don't, because she always helps me when I'm in an abusive situation. Yeah, I always keep working on it. Yeah, totally. Totally. Absolutely. I think that's great. Doran Beckford. Hello and welcome back. It's good to see you. Doran says, I want help but scared who to get help from. Being my people. I have lied to my ABT persons, being a therapist. One was just church friend, no degree. And another one told me I don't have a right to say. That is so confusing. Dorna, I'm going to pass this one up. I'm sorry. It's not clicking for me. Somebody translate that for me if you want to. I'm so sorry, Doran, but it's good to see you tonight. I just don't understand the what's being said to me, and I don't want to misrepresent your comment, you know? Scorpio Bird, hello, it's good to see you. Welcome back tonight. Scorpio Bird says, my abusive parents harassed me, even as an adult, trying to get me fired from every job, sending cops and lawyers to my boss and HR office to slander me. That's what I've been dealing with this week. Wow, that's a lot. Makes you wonder what's the dynamic, what is this for, right? Excuse me, guys. Okay. Danielle says, I can no longer say my mom, my dad. I still can't believe I ended up born to such nonsensical people. Yeah, absolutely. Isn't that something, how a child can be born and they're born into chaos and they turn out to be great? It really is. I have kids who came to me at the age of 5 and they're such good kiddos in the middle of absolutely 2 foolish parents. And now they're in their early 20s and they are wonderful kids. The parents are the problem, not the kid, Ashika Whitaker, hello, welcome. It's so good to see you back tonight. Welcome. Dennis Robinson says, some of these boomers wanted to be gods in your life and not parents, so they can be quite bad. Well, maybe in some scenarios. Absolutely. Absolutely. Doran, let's give it another shot, my friend. So here we go. I don't want my parents around my kid. If they hurt me purposely, they will hurt my child. Not what a psychologist or therapist would say. Whole world a demise. I don't know who to trust. I understand. That's a hard one. I don't have the details, so I can't give you more on that one, Doran. But that is a very, very hard situation. I'm sorry you have to go through that. Valerie K. Roberts, hello, welcome. Good to see you back tonight. Let's keep moving, guys, because I'm like far, far behind in the comments. Yeah, Brondo says paradoxical sense of loyalty is similar to cognitive dissonance and emotional incest. Yeah, it is similar. It's all in the same like ballpark, right? Yeah. Ash Shakur Whitaker says, for a season, it seems to me that people prefer false hope to no hope. I see it as giving a baby a pacifier. The baby stops crying for a while until it realizes that no milk is coming out of it. Yeah, that's a good one. I'm going to start this in the comment section. I agree. Well said. Stacy Del Buccia, hello and welcome. It's good to see you tonight. Yes, you're welcome, Nancy. It's good to see you as well tonight. Thank you, Annie. Yes, guys. Yes, it is what you see. Okay, you ready for this? Okay, this right here signifies that I never sit down. That's what that means. That's exactly what that means. I don't know what I did. Can you believe that? I have no clue what I did. One day, okay, I went out to garden, but I was fine. Another day, I was moving heavy like concrete in my back patio because I'm just like doing some gardening, right? Fine. Carried in a bunch of groceries one night, totally fine. Carried another big heavy something, totally fine. Day or two later, swelling. My whole finger was swollen, okay, like a balloon. And it was kind of bruised and it was hurting and throbbing. And I'm like, what the heck is going on? Guys, I still don't know, but it's been kind of, it has kind of been labeled a sprained finger. So that is the reason for this. Thankfully, I can take it off and type because I can't do a thing with this thing on. So there you have it. I think it's a sprain. I said to my mom, I said, this is the last thing I need because I have a lot of clients. I have a lot of records to make. I have a lot of stuff to do. And my mom is like, well, you're a busy lady. You do a lot. You rarely sit down. So surprised you're not in more casts. So yes. Thank you so much, Annie Walker. I appreciate you for that. I do. I think it looks worse when it's in this thing. And really it's swollen and it aches. That's really what this is for. I know I'm a lot. I am. The Good Glow. Hello, my friend. It's good to see you. Welcome back. Tigress. Love that name. Welcome to the channel. It's so good to have you. Tigress says, that is so true. I got really angry with my ex and finally I walked out. I just could not take the subtle insults. Yeah, get angry. When my clients come to me and they're in a domestic violence situation and I see bruises on them, I see fear, I see they don't want their boyfriend or their husband or their parent to see them in a therapy session at home on computer. When I see that, the first thing I tell them is get angry. The minute you get angry, that's the minute you come to your senses, right? There's no more I forgive you and I love you and I'm going to accept your apology. We're going to get through this. We're going to get through this. There's no more of that. Get angry. When you get angry, you get serious, right? I know I do. You jump into survival mode. Annie Walker says, my challenge is my mother's behavior still deeply triggers me as much as work as I've done. Yeah, I understand. I understand. Annie Walker, I hate to say this, it may be a lifelong journey. It may be a lifelong journey. You know, some things we're going to just be with for the rest of our lives. It won't be as bad. So hopefully you can kind of climb your way out of it, or learn to cope with it in a way that's not going to take you under. So yeah. Annie Walker asked me the question. There we go. Is a no contact order the same as a PFA? Yes. Yep. It just depends on your jurisdiction, where you're at, what country you're in, things like that. Yes, it's the same thing. Keep in mind, and I just told one of my clients this week, keep in mind that a no contact order, protection from abuse order, any, whatever they call it in your area, is going to trigger a response from the abuser. Okay. It can also do other things like prevent them from being able to help you pay your rent, right? Because a no contact or your mortgage, a no contact order, a protection from abuse says you can't come within so many inches of me. And that means don't try it, right? Now, if you get a really psychotic kind of an individual who's a sociopath or a narcissist, you're not going to tell them what to do. So you can get that no contact order. They're going to push the boundary anyway, right? And they may do it a little bit at a time because they know the bounds of that protective order. They know that they can come within this many feet. You know, one of my previous clients had a situation like that. She got a no contact order for her husband. And, you know, he wasn't allowed to come within so many feet of her. However, he was allowed to stand outside of her home as long as he was so many feet from the property. And he would curse and he would slander and he would just do all kind of manner of evil. She was able to show me the video and it was horrendous. He's way across the street, just cursing her out, talking about all her personal business, really trying to embarrass her and, you know, make her look like a very bad person in front of her neighbors. He knew, okay, I can't come within 5 feet of you, but I definitely can stand outside your home. Right. So keep that in mind, that sometimes those no contact orders triggers and it causes them to be really simple, you know? All right, let's keep moving, guys. Okay. Dennis Robinson, thank you so much for that. I'm so glad you feel that way. Dennis Robinson says this Friday's show starts a great weekend. One place where everyone's mind is in the right place. Yes, everyone's mind is in the right place. Love that. Thank you for that. That's so well said. Love that. I'm gonna actually heart that in the comments section. Oh man, I hit the wrong button. Okay, here we go. Jeremy Robinson. Hello, my friend. It's been a little while. It's good to see you. Jeremy Robinson. I was thinking about you when I was looking at some of the research too, by the way. Jeremy Robinson says, that's my mom. She is highly abusive, who has been in abusive relationships with 5 different men. And another thing I want to mention is that children often end up repeating the relationship patterns. They do. They either repeat the abusive relationship patterns or they get into the same kind of relationships later in life. That is backed by and proven by so much research that it's depressing, you know? Okay, couple more comments, guys. Bear with me. Phoenix, I saw you say that we rationalize the red flags. Yes, we do. It's easier. All TikTok complications. Oh, God. Well, hello and welcome. It's good to have you on the channel. Welcome to the channel. All TikTok compilations. I thought it said complications. Compilations says how to not gaslight yourself while getting abused. Not rationalizing, or making excuses. Woo, I can't talk tonight. So how to not gaslight yourself while getting abused? Well, you have to ask yourself this question. That's a little bit difficult for me to give you like a 5-second response to, because that literally can be a whole live chat. But here's what I say. You have to ask yourself, is this behavior normal? By any stretch, is this behavior normal? And is there any excuse for this behavior, right? Let's say you're in a romantic relationship with someone. She comes up to you, right? You've been with her for so many years. She slaps you in the face and tells you not to look at her that way. And you say, whoa, what was that? Right? And she says, you deserved it. I've seen men get beat up by women before. They are also in domestic violence relationships. And you have to ask yourself, was that necessary? Right? Was that a mature way to handle this? If I'm looking at you a certain way, maybe ask me about it. Don't just come up to me and slap me. So is it necessary? Is it mature? Is it normal? And is it going to elicit a healthy response from me? And if all of those answers turn up to be negative, right, you got a problem. That's the only way that you cannot gaslight yourself when you're being abused. You have to be able to ask yourself, is this normal? Is this the way we deal with this? Is there any excuse for this behavior that is legitimate? Not that he had a bad day, not that you just have, a couple of abusive histories, abusive people in your history, and now you're doing it again. I'm so sorry, I won't do it again. One time is enough. It's not a mature response. It is not a normal response, and it doesn't happen in the majority of healthy relationships. To me, that is the first start to not gaslight yourself, right? You can't minimize abuse or rationalize abuse or downplay abuse when you ask yourself, is this normal? Was this necessary? Is this mature? Right? And is this any way that a healthy relationship, is I'll put it this way, is the behavior a part of a healthy relationship? I'll put it that way. So ask yourself some reflective questions is really what it's called, and you might be able to get your answer. I hope that made sense. I hope it did. Phil Bradley, thank you so much for the super chat. Always appreciate you guys when you donate to the channel. It really does help a lot. You don't have to, which makes me grateful when you do. So thank you. All right, let's keep moving, guys, because we're going to wrap up here in just a little bit. Kiki Jefferson. Yeah, Kiki Jefferson, hello and welcome to the channel. It's good to have you. Kiki says, I had to say out loud for 3 months that blank does not love me to go no contact. Yeah, sometimes you do. I am in an abusive relationship. I am in an abusive relationship. I am an abusive family. I'm an abusive family, right? Sometimes you do have to say it over and over and over until it clicks. And maybe it'll click and you're still in that abusive situation. But at least you will have come a lot further than you were, which is not understanding that you're in an abusive relationship, right? So sometimes you might have to repeat yourself over and over. I hate to say it, but it's true. Craig Williams, hello. I was going to say hello, my friend. Welcome to tonight's live chat. It's good to see you. It's good to see you as well. The Iconic Intuitive, hello and welcome. The Iconic Intuitive says, and sometimes it's a challenge for these coercive control people to block your every move in hopes to fraud you of everything to block movements. I'm not sure that clicked for me. Okay, maybe. Yeah, maybe. It's clicking. I understand what you're saying. Might be a dynamic in some relationships. Yeah, absolutely. Let me say, Ashika Whitaker says, You can't get tired of something for someone. They have to get tired of the abuse themselves. 100 and 200%. I agree. 100%. 100%. You cannot get tired of the abuse for someone. They have to get tired themselves. I should make you my last comment, Ash Shakur Whitaker. That was well said. The Good Glow says, never imagined that my after retirement job would be at a homeless shelter. It's rewarding and at the same time so sad. So I dare not complain. Yeah, I understand. I don't know how I would deal with that either. Being in a homeless shelter, you come across so many broken people, don't you? And they're broken, not because something's wrong with them. They're broken because something's wrong with their life, right? And it has broken them. Yeah. Bree 420, hello, welcome. It's still good to see you, whether you're late or not. Juby Joe, thank you for that. She says Tamara is blessing us all, and especially our family subscribers who are currently experiencing this abuse and pain. Yes. And thank you for saying that. I always hope that that's the end result. One more comment. I think I measure my last one. Everyone in this chat can clearly see the abuse, and this would help us transform suffering into wisdom. The others are stuck in learned patterns as we change ours. Yeah, sharing our stories helps us heal. Very, very much agree. So nicely said. You're my last one. Guys, this was a lot tonight, but I'm going to come back tomorrow. You're going to want to learn about abusive amnesia, because it's not what you think it is. You're going to want to hear that. So come back and see me tomorrow. For those of you that I didn't get to tonight, know that later on, I'm going to be going through the comments, going through the chat box, and I'm going to be answering questions, that kind of thing, posting comments and looking at what you guys have said. If anyone gave a super chat and I missed it, forgive me, but I am grateful. Sometimes when I sign off, I'll go back hours later and I'll see a super chat. I'll see a donation, and I think, man, how can I tell them I'm grateful? So just know that if you gave one and I missed it, I'm grateful for you, okay? Look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Come join me then. I hope you have a safe and wonderful Friday night. Good night, guys.